Hi everyone. I wanted to provide a short case study of when change managers do everything right, but don't necessarily end up with a success. This is a story about our recent restructure in our external relations division at SAIT. So prior to 2018, that division was comprised of communications department, marketing, responsible for cross-institutional marketing, alumni and development, corporate engagement, and institutional planning and analysis. So that's my former department. Challenges: there were staff in other areas of SAIT performing similar roles to us. So for instance, primary market research had its own department in another division. Program-specific marketing and recruitment was housed in each school and done very differently in each. And oddly enough, program development research and all of the related activities for corporate training and continuing education were taken care of entirely separately from research or credit programs, which institutional analysis and planning did. As you can imagine, this was fairly confusing for a lot of our stakeholders around the institution. They didn't know who to ask for services or for research, which negatively affected our efficiency and also created some political problems here and there. So the solution that was announced in fall 2017 is that as of the new year, all our marketing and communications activities would merge under a single department, so bringing in all of the marketing partners from the schools. And for my department, it meant that all research functions would reorganize. So my department split, where some of us joined a new strategic planning department, still in external relations, but the majority of our members who are more focused on data, government reporting, and dashboard development got moved to the Business Intelligence and Analytics Department, which also took on analysts from around the institution involved in international student recruitment, program development for continuing education, and also all of our primary market research folks. Now, the Kubler-Ross model really describes a lot of what happened with us. So at first, there was significant denial, particularly in my department. We had made a lot of strides in terms of developing a great tool of self-serve analytics for deans and department chairs, so it was a little bit surprising that we would be asked to merge with another unit to improve our effectiveness. Now, change managers responded with clear and precise communication, particularly from our division vice president, on why the restructure was needed. And where possible, she met with each of us to contextualize those changes in the context of our individual job duties. This also leads into the anger portion. Now, these departmental mergers meant that people were concerned that their jobs would change and that some of them would lose their jobs, which eventually did happen. Those of us who were working in roles that would now be held by two separate departments in two separate divisions were particularly affected by this. Change managers again responded with strong communication and meeting with us individually again to understand what we felt role clarity would look like for our new roles. Bargaining was where our staff responded with trying to help shape the mandates of their new departments and trying to help shape their relationships around the institution now that the ground had shifted beneath them. Again, some of that was challenging because they were still spreading some misinformation. We still didn't have all the answers about what would happen at the end of this restructuring. Again, change managers responded with clear communication across the institution to help them understand what was happening in our division specifically. Now, in terms of depression, the effects of the organizational redesign took a short-term toll on our employee morale. Our last employment engagement survey showed some decreases in some of the metrics for our division. Change managers responded with giving us a forum to candidly talk about our experiences at our periodic division meetings and didn't penalize us for expressing worry and concern. We're at the acceptance stage now, where it's been just over a year since the reorganization happened. We've kind of found a new equilibrium, And change managers have helped that along by elevating employees most comfortable with that change to cheerleader roles, which is kind of an example of what Northhouse describes as leader-member exchange theory. Now, this all sounds great, but the reality is that it's not clear that this was an entire success. Now, some areas did better than others. Departments that were all brought into the same division were able to work together a lot more efficiently. However, those departments that were split off from each other, we have a bit of a disconnect in that our data and primary research report through a separate reporting line. So, for instance, those of us who are in strategic planning, it's very challenging now to have the same kind of access to our data stewards that we once did. Now, I want to go back to the fact that Buehler points out that standard change management models, including Kubler-Ross, might not really be appropriate for the context of higher ed. He rests a lot of that on their incompatibility with shared governance. Now, shared governance, when we're talking about a polytechnic in Canada, doesn't quite exist in the same way according to either Dennison or Hogan and Trotter's work on academic governance at community colleges in Canada. And again, with non-academic staff, like all of the people who were mostly involved in the external relations restructuring, we don't have quite the same decision maker, decision implementer dichotomy that Buehler describes as being so problematic with standard change models in higher ed. Now, the whole death metaphor of Kubler-Ross, in that we would lose our departmental association, our office, the group of colleagues we've been working with for a long time, in some cases, the death metaphor really does fit. So, the way I can sum this up is that even though Kubler-Ross does help to describe this situation, and our change leaders basically did everything right by the regard of that model, it's not clear that that still led to entirely efficient academic administration. And that's about it for me. Thanks so much for listening.